it's Paul Ryan. What I'd like to do now is just take a look back and recap. For those of you who are new listeners, or maybe you've missed some shows, just trace back. I think we began these broadcasts 30 odd weeks ago, maybe more. And we'll just talk about where I've come from and where we're heading from today. It all began, we started with the creation of music. I talked about players and poets, people who write music, lyrics first, and other ones that write the music first. Looked at Brian Wilson, we looked at Dolly Parton, and then went on to talk about how great artists enhance a song, polishing a song, talked about tone. Then we switched to another area, what makes a song special. Looked at different elements, looked at how the brain processes music, and finally on to all-time great artists in terms of record sales, revenues. The Beatles, Elvis, Garth Brooks, the Eagles, and many others. We looked at them, what made them successful. I then took a little bit of a hitchhike and looked at top acoustic musicians, most of them in bluegrass, and also looked at some instrument builders, acoustic instrument builders. We then switched to the history of music, looked at the first ever song, looked at the first ever song with lyrics, went from way back to medieval right up to today, and looked at characteristics within different clusters of years where music was progressing. So I looked at markers in acoustic music along the way, the Bristol Sessions and different artists. Finally, in the last number of weeks, we've looked at the revenue picture, record labels, streaming DSPs, looked at genres, where the most revenue is going. What I'd like to do now is switch gears again, away a little bit from the revenue. We're still on a little bit, but we're going to go away a little bit too, and take a look at the bigger picture. From the record label to the DSP, consumption from albums to tracks and playlists. We know that recorded music revenue, though not all the way back to the pre-Napster era, is slowly getting back there. It was 26 billion or something. We're at 18 now. But so what? What does that all mean? In my mind, this move away from hard copy music and towards the digital, the streaming, it represents the fourth great advance in the entire history of music. The other three in those other sessions, first ever melody that we ever knew of, the first ever music with lyrics, that was Sikelos. And then I talked about Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, those as being the three major undercurrents or major shifts within music. The fourth major shift we're undergoing right now. It's based on technology, not music itself, like the other three shifts. So in a way, today's shift is more unique from the other three. But such a major upheaval must be accompanied also with a bevy of new trends and developments, right? Yeah, I think so. And some of these are very visible, some a little bit more subtle. But there are a lot of new trends underway now, and we've done a lot in the last few years. This goes hand in hand with the digital download era. In the coming weeks, I'm going to look at these, and how to kick things off today, I'm going to look at one obvious one, and that is the rise of the indie musician. The music industry of today is far different than the one where I cut that 45 RPM record all those years ago. That was an era where labels reigned supreme, and most recording was done in one of those big studios. But here's a cool stat. Online resource Catapult says that in 2024, only 5% of people releasing music are signed to a record label. That same report says that indie musicians account for 36% of recorded music sales. That's a huge difference from the old days, when that figure would have been next to nothing. If that 36% is even near accurate, it means that indies will account for over $6 billion of recorded music revenue in 2026 in the USA, and over $5 billion of the streaming pie. Remember, we talked about developing a tool to get into the revenue and split it up. This is one way that it's working. Now I can look at that percentage, 36, and look at the actual dollars. Something else here might be surprising too. When I say indie musician, what's the visual in your mind there? What do you think about? Maybe a guy with a guitar in his basement or even bedroom or garage? Or maybe he plays at a local bar or a community center from time to time. Indie, that phrase, quote unquote indie, the phrase suggests smallness, right? Well, yeah, partly true. Your 15-year-old niece with her new electric guitar who wrote a song and recorded it with a home recorder and sent it to some friends, she's an indie. But you know what? Taylor Swift was an indie too. Maybe not now, but she was. And today she's over 57 million unit record sales. Some of these musicians have huge following. For example, Modest Mouse has 3 million listeners. Dominic Fike has 2 million. These are not basement musicians. They are as professional and as big as signed artists. So what indie actually refers to now when it comes to musicians is that the artist has 100% control over the creative content. Yeah, there's an element of smallness within the indie music area, but it's also just one part of a bigger picture. My point here is that this segment, comprised of some small, some large acts, are now a huge force in the music industry. This trend probably won't eliminate labels completely, but indies will continue to take their share of the music industry pie, as evidenced by that whopping $5+ billion in streaming revenue. Hey, I'm an indie musician myself, and I can say that that little tiny element of being totally free from someone else telling you what to do with your writing or your music, it's huge. So how did this indie musician segment rise so fast and to such a place of prominence? It's probably a combination of a number of factors, not the least of which is an access to a big brand new world of music fans through streaming. Indies can be discovered much easier in the online or cloud world than they could from a record label. So a fan of country music is able to type in, quote, sounds like Toby Keith, end quote, and up pops a bunch of names. At the start of the show, I spoke about undercurrents that have been coming along in lockstep with the move to digital music, and indie musicians are certainly one of these. But how can a smaller musician create music that can compete sound-wise with the big studios and labels? Tune in next week, and I'm going to take a look at that. Today's song is You Were Home to Me. It's a song I wrote for my late mom. Mothers can be the most important person in our lives. From all their sacrifices to the warmth they bring, this song is to celebrate and always remember our mothers. Now that all the haze and dust has settled and you've reached your destination, arriving at one final stop. Now that all the heartache and the tears have dried and time has dulled the sadness, wounds and cuts, nothing lasts forever, so they say. And yet I feel your love inside unbroken every day. You saw my best part, non-stop devotion and a warm heart. Through the years you were home to me. A young boy growing had refuge when winds were blowing through thick and thin. You were home to me. I remember when you'd take us to the water, and I'd drive in Dad's old Chevy to a place we'd not been before. Dreams like that you had your share, alright. Adventures leading somewhere roads were dark. You were the light. It's funny when I look down at my phone, waiting for your call, and yet I know you saw my best part, non-stop devotion and a warm heart. Through the years you were home to me, a young boy growing and refuge. When winds were blowing through thick and thin, you were home to me.
And now, here is this week's episode of The Musical Life of Freddie Spaghetti.
In last week's episode, Freddie Spaghetti and the Noodles were faced with a microphone that wasn't working right, just before their performance. Once the disaster was behind them, the show went very well. For the audience, the equipment fiasco provided a little levity to the show. But for Freddie later on in the dressing room, it feels horrible. He made the best of it, but believes that the overall presentation was unprofessional. The microphone problem was the fault of the venue and not the band, but it reflected poorly on them, and it's certainly not a good way to begin a tour. He walks back to the motel and collapses on the bed, exhausted. He places the guitar down right beside him and falls asleep, his fingers still interlocked with the guitar case handle. During the second tour, Freddie continues writing songs in motel rooms, restaurants, anywhere he can grab some free time. One of the new songs is called Have It Your Way. It's a song about a couple that they've been arguing. The protagonist in the song is frustrated and drives to a local bar to be with his buddies. He confides in them after telling his lover to have it your way. The song's an up-tempo tune, and Freddie thinks maybe a banjo player might fit in perfectly. Whatever sounds right for the song, right? He calls Delroy, who's happy to hear about the new song and thinks the idea of adding a banjo is great. So for now, some shows the band will have 6 people. With the banjo idea, Delroy believes that Freddie is beginning to think like a professional musician. Thank you for listening to Sound Threads. Remember to come back right here next week for another edition of Sound Threads.